If you are new here, welcome to Dragon's Hoard, where we discuss everything from covers of books all the way to chapter summaries and synopsises, thoughts and opinions, and similar reads. My name is Rebecca, and today we will be going over Shield of Sparrows, and I just let the cat in. He's aggravating, as you can tell. Don't need it. Alright, so I guess he wants to be held. So today for our cover review, in Shield of Sparrows, the cover is very intricately designed. The base itself of our cover is a deep, rich green, and it has a little bit of an appearance of painted embossed leather. And our focal piece on the cover is a large piece of what I assume is driftwood. That's just my opinion of what it looks like, which doesn't really make sense because there are like blooms and leaves coming off of it. However, I do feel that those are more like vines, not so much the actual focal piece of the wood. And on top of our focal piece of driftwood, there is a sword. There's a sword, but it's not that easy to find. If you're not looking at more details of the cover, then the sword can kind of get hidden in there. So this sword is a very simple sword. It's not ornate, it's not something exaggerated. So this gives us an implication that there will be a warrior element to this story, and the flowers are such a delicate contrast to the sword that it is supposed to be a romantasy. Okay, so the flowers are very delicate. We can get the idea that our female protagonist is probably going to be rather delicate, and then there's going to be a warrior element. And of course, we can't forget the crown. The crown, its visual weight is very heavy, so it appears that it will actually be heavy to wear. So maybe that's giving us an implication of some kind of heavy burden for the royal family that this crown belongs to. Just from the cover, I believe this book is going to keep us on our toes. It's probably going to keep us guessing at least a little bit, just because of how the sword is hidden, and then the leaves and the flowers, they don't appear to be connected to the driftwood. And like I said, the crown itself appears to be a heavy burden. So it is possible that there are deeper plot elements than just the underlying romantasy aspect of the story. And then, of course, on the cover, there is a line that reads, "Fear the monsters we make." So this could be telling us, okay, in the story, we've made some kind of monster, or we've turned someone into a monster because of the way they've been treated. So this is something that I look forward to finding out what it actually means. Remember, I do these cover reviews before I read the book. So these are my notes from before I read the book. And then the rest of the view does go over what I thought of the book, the synopsis, all of those good juicy details. And aesthetically, I do like the cover. The visual weight is pulling in all of the right places for me. And then even the title itself, since this title is Shield of Sparrows, I want to know what a Shield of Sparrows is. Is it an actual shield? Is it a metaphor for something? What is a Shield of Sparrows? What is the purpose of a Shield of Sparrows? So that itself is a hook to draw us in, and then the cover design, the colors, because they've been getting very generic in that aspect. All of that just flows wonderfully. So I gave this cover a 5 out of 5 for design. Alright, so now we're going to go over the synopsis. So just some general details about the story. Shield of Sparrows is a romantasy novel by Devney Perry, and it is based in the fantasy world of Calandra. Calandra is one big continent broken down into smaller kingdoms. And in this, each kingdom is unique in its own way, so that means that each kingdom has to depend on each other for certain resources. Because they don't have all of these resources, they have to depend on each other. So that means they have to have good relations with each other, because if they don't, then they don't get these resources, and then life does not go on the way it should, and it brings them into financial ruin, and they don't get basic resources that they need. Like there's a kingdom, let us say, I don't remember the exact specifics of what resources it was, but it was things like lumber. There's a kingdom that's important for lumber. There's a kingdom for fish. There's a kingdom for grains. That kind of thing. So all of this backstory is important in that aspect because the kingdoms have to work together. They can't just wage war on each other and take over, because that would put them into financial crisis or send them into a famine, those kinds of things. But one of the biggest things that affect all of these kingdoms are terrorized by monsters. The monsters themselves are pretty intense. However, there is a canonic event that occurs in this world known as the migration. And the normal everyday everyday monsters that we see, they are pretty terrifying, but these monsters that come in the migration are even more terrifying because they are flying monsters. So they fly over the entirety of Kalandra, and their only goal in life is to terrorize, destroy, and kill as many humans as possible. The majority of our story takes place in the kingdom of Tura, but this is only after our female protagonist is married off to the prince of Tura, and that would be Princess Odessa. Originally, she wasn't supposed to marry the prince. It was supposed to have been her sister. Princess Odessa is like the wallflower in this story. So since she wasn't supposed to be married off to the prince, no, it was supposed to have been her sister had all of the training. Odessa doesn't have the skill set that her sister did because her father wants Odessa, since she's not married to the prince, her father wants her to spy on them and get some information for something that he wants from their kingdom. But because Odessa doesn't have this skill set, she's at a disadvantage. Her sister, however, did have the skill set because all of the resources, all of the tutors, the training went to her. And as we dive deeper into the land of Tura after Odessa gets there, then all of the pieces begin to intertwine and they begin to make more sense. We get more details. There is a big plot twist at the end of this book, so if you don't like standalones, I would wait until the second book comes out. It's supposed to come out sometime in 2026. I believe it's May. It may be sooner. I just know it's coming out in 2026. I do not know exact dates. And the plot twist is a huge cliffhanger. Be warned. Also, this book is in first person POV, and we only have one singular POV throughout the entire story, and that is from Princess Odessa. So now that we have a general outline of what goes on in this book, now we're going to take a moment to look over everything that happens. So our book begins with a question that snags our attention, and it draws us in to continue reading and understand what's going on in Princess Odessa's mind. I believe, because I didn't write it down, I thought I did, I believe the question was, should I jump? I don't remember. I'll put it somewhere on the screen. That was a lame brain. Now, another thing I would like to talk about, principally about this book, is that usually I try to stay away from either reading or watching reviews of books before I've actually written or recorded my own. However, I did give in to the temptation just because of what I kept seeing popping up on social media. And a lot of what I saw is where everyone's talking about how annoying Princess Odessa is. Everyone just says that she's so annoying, she's a nuisance, she asks too many questions, and she does ask a lot of questions. I won't deny that. That is true. However, I did believe that this was an interesting way to go about writing the story. Another interesting point I thought about this was the fact that this behavior that Princess Odessa shows us, this is what I thought Violet Soaringale from Fourth Wing should have been like, since she was supposed to have been a scribe. So I did believe that Violet should have asked more questions, been more in tune with the nature of putting together puzzle pieces, just questioning things in general, and so be like, oh, yep, let's go do that. Makes sense that they're wandering off and they meet in this big group and do these things. No, you're supposed to be a scribe. You're supposed to ask questions. I know you became a dragon writer, but you're supposed to have the mind of a scribe, and that is how I felt Odessa did portray herself. Since she is a wallflower, she always enjoyed reading, drawing, and painting. So those are key elements that come into play within the story. We would think we'd see more of that with Violet, but we're going to get out of Fourth Wing and go back to Shield of Sparrows. Anyway, a lot of people found Odessa to be overbearingly annoying. I just found her to be inquisitive. The way she asked questions continuously didn't bother me at all. I was fine with the way she asked questions and the frequency at which she asked questions. It made sense to me. It just worked for my brain. Now we'll go over a little bit of the world building. The world building itself is pretty dense. It's well done, but we do move locations many times, so I would just keep that in mind. However, those descriptions of the places that we continuously jump to, the description itself is vivid, and the monsters themselves are described vividly, so we don't have such a vague idea of what kind of monster it is. And their descriptions are beautiful and terrifying at the same time. If you do decide to read this story, then I know that you will understand what I mean by beautiful and terrifying. The monsters themselves, if you have ever read Graceling by Kristen Cashore, they remind me of the monsters that were in her book, just because they do seem to be animal based. However, they are massive in size. They have some additional features, I suppose we could say. Their coloration is fantastical, not really that natural most of the time. Those kinds of things. And then another thing about this book is that it's led by an underlying mystery, and our protagonist is trying to solve that mystery before it's too late, and that mystery does have to do with the migration. Because of all these circumstances, Odessa does go through tremendous character growth. By the time we reach the end of the book, she is a completely different person than how we meet her. She becomes so much more than the cast aside princess that we meet at the beginning of the book when she reaches the end of the book. So in general, I did enjoy the story. I enjoyed the writing style. I enjoyed the world building. I am a sucker for good world building, its complexity, and I enjoyed the mystery and trying to puzzle it out along with Odessa, with the clues that the author deemed us worthy of having. Overall, I enjoyed this book almost in its entirety. The only thing that did grate on my nerves was the fact that this was supposed to be a romantasy. I went in thinking we were going to get enemies to lovers or something like that real quick. This is a tremendous slow burn. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this commercial. This is non-sponsored. I don't remember the name of the dog treats, but I do hear it on Spotify all the time, and it's just really like slow cooked. That's how slow this burn is. Probably slower. So just in that aspect, I thought we were never actually going to make it to the romance, but we did after an eternity and a half. And that frustration that I had with such a slow burn made my rating, instead of being a 5 out of 5 for me, I had to leave it at a 4 out of 5 stars just because it grated on me so badly. But it was a good read. I enjoyed it. So now that the sun has risen, we're going to go over the magic system a little bit. The magic system in this world is based around what is known as the Brotherhood. And the Brotherhood's other name, they're also known as the Voster, okay, with a V. A V. What is going on in the fantasy community? Because apparently now if you have either evil or questionable magic users, their name needs to start with a V. Okay, here in Shield of Sparrows we have the Vosters. We don't know if they're good or bad yet. We just know they're kind of weird, kind of sketchy. But if we think about it, Fourth Wing, we have the Finnin, it's a V. Twilight, we have the Volturi, that's a V. And now the Voster. I'll see which other one I can find later. I'm sure there's more, but is this a new rule? Is this a new trend? Am I missing something? Maybe? Is it just because V for villain? I don't know. I'd like to know. Anyhow, the Voster have some magic, and usually it's either air or water type magic. And the monsters within this world, they also have magic, and that magic seems to be the root of their strength, their agility, their speed, their unique colorations, those kinds of things. And that's pretty much the only details that we get about the magic system. It's not very detailed for us yet, so we don't have all of the puzzle pieces concerning that. The only other thing that's mentioned that is magical is blood magic, and that's like used for signing treaties or accords, documents, official things between the kingdoms mostly. So because of this, I am hoping to see more of it in the next book. Would I recommend this? Yes, I would. I would recommend this, especially if you've read Graceling by Kristen Cashore. It is very similar in that aspect. I was enraptured by the description of the monsters, and if you believe you'll be annoyed by someone asking questions constantly, this might not be the read for you. I would give it a go just to see. However, that might not be up your alley. And another thing that might bother some people is in this story we do have a use of modern language. It's not like older language, more fantasy type language that's a little bit more ye olde English. No, this is modern language. We do have the use of curse words. And I'd also take a look at the trigger warnings before getting into this book, just in case there is something that will make you uncomfortable or you don't want to read that. Just make sure you take a look, even if you aren't interested. And like I said, if you don't like reading unfinished series, hold out because the second book isn't out yet, but it will be soon. And if you're looking for a very spicy, spunny book, this isn't it. It's that epically slow burn. And if you're looking for epic battles constantly, this is also not it. We do have occasional battles, occasional fights, but it's not the main focus within the story. And like I said, if you're looking for a slow burn and that is your jam, this is a super, super slow burn. So it might just be your cup of tea, but be warned, it's slow. Will I be reading the next book? Yes, I will. I do look forward to reading the next book because I want to know what happens after the cliffhanger that we are thrown off of at the very end of the book. I need answers. And if this review did help you decide whether or not you wanted to read Shield of Sparrows, then please leave a comment down below if this review helped you at all and let me know how it went. And as I mentioned previously, a similar read to this is Graceling by Kristen Cashore. That's the only book that I can think of at the moment that is similar to Shield of Sparrows. I really need to reread this. I want to read Bitter Blue, but I never got around to it. Alright everyone, and we have made it to the end of our review today. I hope you've enjoyed the information we've gone over in this review of Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. If you enjoyed being here and look forward to upcoming reviews, please hit that like and subscribe button. That way you are brought back and we can continue discussing fantasy, romantasy for reviewing. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.